Hi, spooky friends. Guess what day it is? That's right. It's 100 days until Halloween. Oh, wait. Yeah, no, it's Tutorial Tuesday. Hi, spooky friends. I've filmed this intro now twice. I filmed it the first time. I thought I had it down, and then I totally forgot that today is day 1 of 100 days till Halloween. So I figured I'd mention that to you guys because this is a very, very exciting day. There's only 100 more days until Halloween. Like, I'm so freaking excited. Today's tutorial is going to be a pumpkin sentinel. I'll go ahead and insert a picture of what exactly a pumpkin sentinel is now, so you can see what they look like. This is going to be part 1 of a hopefully 2-part series. It may end up being a 3-part series, but I'm going to try to get it down in 2 parts because I have tons and tons of DIY ideas for this year to not only decorate the inside of your home, but also decorate the outside of your home using things from either the dollar store or things that you can find around your house. I know how expensive Halloween props are, and I know that I'm constantly searching for better ideas or cheaper ways to decorate your home. If you want to see more of this type of content, please feel free to subscribe. I thank you so much for watching, and let's get started. Y'all, the materials you're going to need is newspaper, flour, 2 toilet paper rolls, plastic bags, glue, and if you want packing tape, it's optional. To make the paper mache paste, you're going to need 1 cup of water and 2 tablespoons of flour. You're going to add both of these ingredients together and mix them very, very thoroughly. You don't want to have any lumps in your flour. I mixed mine for about 1.5 minutes just to make sure that it was thoroughly mixed. Once you get that finished, go ahead and pour it in your pan, and you're going to set the heat to high to medium high. While this is cooking, you're going to want to stir it constantly. Once the mixture begins to bubble, you're going to want to go ahead and pull it off of the heat and then pour it into a container to cool. Okay, let's get started on making our base. The first thing you're going to want to do is grab one of your plastic bags. That one's kind of torn. Yeah, there we go. We're going to fill our plastic bag with about 10 to 15 other bags. Once you get that full, you're going to want to tie it off. I tied it off at the top, and then instead of using rope for this, I went ahead and wrapped the ears of the tie around to the bottom and then tied it off again. I didn't want to be wasteful, so like I said, instead of using rope, I went ahead and grabbed another plastic bag and I twisted it up really tightly so that it formed kind of like a rope, and then I tied that around perpendicular to the first tie that I had made on the bottom. And now you have your pumpkin shape. Okay, now that we got that done, we're going to go ahead and set our little pumpkin aside and grab our stack of newspaper. You're going to want to tear this into squares. Mine were about, I don't know, 3 inches by 3 inches or so. Once you get those squares torn, you're going to want to crumple it up and wad it up in your hands. It just makes the paper lay smoother once you go ahead and start trying to apply it to your plastic bag. You're going to want to do this for all of the paper that you have torn into squares. For my particular project, I used 2 full adverts, so I would start off with just about that amount. If you need more, you can always make more. And this is what I ended up with. All right, the next step in the process, you're going to want to grab your toilet paper roll. This is going to be the base of our pumpkin. You're going to want to fringe the bottom end of the toilet paper roll all the way around. Once you get it fully fringed, you're going to want to split up all the fringes and make them lay flat. I accomplished this by pulling back each one of the fringes individually and then kind of flattening it with my hand. Once you've gotten that done, what most people do when they do a base for their pumpkin sentinels is you tape over the top. But I found that this is a pain in the butt. Like when you go to pull it apart from the plastic bags, the tape ends up adhering to one of the most critical support pieces in your whole pumpkin head. So go ahead and run like a piece of tape in the center just to hold it down for temporarily. And then what I did is I ran some tacky glue around each one of the fringes and then pressed them down against my plastic bag. Now it's time to mache. You're going to want to grab your cooled mache paste. And if you don't want to get messy, you can use a paintbrush to put the paste on your pumpkin project. Just go ahead and lay down a layer of mache paste and then start adding your strips and then painting back over them with the mache paste as you go. I always start with the base just to make sure, because that's going to be a support piece, I want to make sure that it's as stable as possible. So when you go ahead and tack down the base, you're going to want to use several layers. Like I said, just to make sure that that piece is super stable. Once you get your first base layer down, what we're going to do is we're going to grab another section of the advert and we're going to fringe it. Lay it flat, and then you're going to want to coat that with a thick coat of paper mache paste. Once you get that coated, we're going to wrap that around the stem of the base for the neck of our pumpkin sentinel. It's not going to go on perfect. Just kind of try to get it on there as best you can and then flatten out with each one of those fringes as you go. And then run back over it really quick with your paintbrush and then smush everything down. Now it's time to go ahead and do the sides. I like to put down individual strips around the perimeter of the pumpkin. So you see me here putting one on each one of those little protruded parts on the pumpkin. And then once I get all 4 of those strips down, I'm going to go in and fill in all of the sides and overlap my paper as I go around the whole pumpkin. Now this is just the first layer. When you go to do your second layer, instead of laying your pieces up and down, you're going to want to go horizontal with your pieces. The more variations in the direction of your paper that you mache onto your pumpkin, the better. I just find that when you lay them down one way and then flip it over and then lay them down the other way, it just makes for a stronger base coat of paper and an overall stronger pumpkin. You're going to make sure that you mache on either side of the cracks on the pumpkin and then lay your piece down in the center of the crack of the pumpkin, if that makes sense, in between each one of the protruded parts, like the bulbous parts on the pumpkin. You're going to lay down a piece on either side, and then you're going to do the center and then lay down a piece on either side, because those I have found in all my years of doing mache, the center crack part in between each one of the protruded parts on the pumpkin is always my weakest part, because I always forget to fill in that gap. So I would just keep that in mind to make sure that you're giving that a few coats so that it doesn't become a weak spot on your finished product. And then you see me here giving the base of the stem for the neck portion of our Sentinel one more layer of paper mache before I get ready to flip it over and start working on the bottom side. Now, what I did to start working on the bottom side was I got a little plastic cup, like a heavy plastic cup, and I just kind of set that stem down into the cup so that I could work on the bottom side without having to wait for the neck portion to dry. Now that I'm starting to work on the top of the head of our pumpkin Sentinel, I'm going to do a real thin layer over the entire top of our pumpkin Sentinel. And then once I finish working on that, we're going to start working on the stem. And as you see here, I'm using pretty large pieces of newspaper, which is fine. When we go to do the next coat after we get it paper mached, we're going to be going over it with some handmade paper mache clay. So that's going to make it very, very durable. And it won't matter so much how large the pieces of newspaper are on there. Any defects that the large pieces of newspaper cause on the finished product are going to be hidden underneath all that clay. Okay, now it's time to work on the stem. For the stem, we're going to use another toilet paper roll. You're going to cut about a 2.5 inch slit down. You're going to fringe 2.5 inches down from the top. And then you're going to flip your roll over and then fringe up about an inch or so, a 1/2 inch to an inch, as you see here. And once you get that all fringed, the 1 inch side, you're going to bend it back just like we did for the neck part. And then once you get that all bent back, you're going to want to go ahead and glue all of those little pieces of fringe, put some glue on all of the pieces of fringe to glue it down. As you can see, the fringes make it easy to create that pointy stem look. There's a lot of different ways to create stems for pumpkins, but I've found over the years that doing it this way, it creates a really stable base. So if you want to do some of those ridiculously long, like 4 and 5 foot long pumpkin stems coming off of the top of your project, you can do that because it has a more stable base than just gluing down a piece of really long newspaper that's been crumpled up. Okay. What you're going to do now, once you've gotten that glued down, is you're going to put one piece down just to kind of tack everything together and hold all those little fringe pieces into a point. I don't wait for it to dry, but if you want to go ahead and wait for it to dry, you can. I've been doing it like this for a long time. I really haven't had any problems with it, so it's just up it's like a personal preference for me anyway. The next step you're going to do is you're going to take some strips of newspaper and you're going to soak them in the mache paste. You're going to kind of twist them and pinch them up, and then you're going to place them on the stem and swirl them around to the top so it creates those ridges that you see on the pumpkin stems. For my particular pumpkin, I think I put about 5 or 6 pieces on there and swirled them up to the top. And when you put those pieces on, you're going to want to make sure that they extend past the stem and down onto the top of the pumpkin. And then once you get all of those pieces laid down the way that you like them, you're going to want to take another piece of newspaper and soak it in mache paste, and then go ahead and lay them on top of all of those pieces that you just laid down on the stem, just to kind of hold them in place and to smooth the stem out a little bit. As you place them, you're going to want to run your fingers down in between each one of the newspaper pieces that you swirled up on the stem, just to make sure that you're not missing any of those details that you had put in. And this is what it's going to look like with its first coat. If you want to, you can moisten your hands with a little bit of the paper mache paste and then go back over the outside just to kind of smooth it. But this is what your first coat will look like. Okay, y'all. Well, I thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed making the first step in a hopefully 2-part process, but may end up being a 3-part process on making our pumpkin Sentinel. If you have any questions on any of the steps, please feel free to leave them down in the comments. I will be more than happy to answer them for you. I hope you enjoyed doing the tutorial with me, and I will see you in the next one.